Hey everybody, welcome back to The Pressing Matters. I'm Scott. Thank you for tuning in today. Thank you for your support. Here I am on my 50th take of this. We have dogs barking, trees falling, birds chirping, roommates yelling. It's just too much. Okay, I think we have a quiet moment. I'm going to try to squeeze this in. Excuse me if I seem like I'm going fast through this, because I'm trying to get it all before there's any interruptions. Okay. Today, we're going to be talking about a very special living stereo title. It's LSC 2405, Alexander Gibson and the London Symphony Orchestra in Sibelius, Symphony No. 5 in the Karelia Suite. This is a recording that was part of a package deal that RCA had with Decca. Decca was to record some of the European artists and orchestras for exclusive release on RCA Living Stereo. This pact held until the mid-70s, when Decca was allowed to release these titles on their own series. So they put them out on Stereo Treasury and World of Classics and so forth. So the original release, the first pressings, are on Living Stereo. And some very famous recordings came out of this arrangement, including the Royal Ballet Gala and Witch's Brew, two of the most famous that I can think of. But there are 12 titles that were done in the Analogue Productions Living Stereo series that are from this Decca arrangement. So you can check those out if you go to their page and filter down to Decca, Analogue Productions Living Stereo Decca. I have 4 editions of this. The original 1S pressing from RCA, Indianapolis. I also have the London Stereo Treasury pressing that was done in the UK. That was released in America. I also have Bernie Grundman's Classic Records cut at 33, and the more recent AP Living Stereo. The reason I put this way is because I wanted to do a reveal for you. The original Shaded Dog has a beautiful cover, and AP has replicated this here. Watch this. As you turn it, the light catches Sibelius's face and lights up in gold. I love that about that. It's gold embossed, and it really looks pretty on the original and on the Living Stereo. I'm sorry, on the Analogue Productions. Here's my 1S pressing. Treasured 1S. You know, people talk about these 1S pressings like they're something special. You know what? They are. They really are. I used to think, it's just collectors protecting their investment. I got to tell you, there's more to it than that. Much more. The original Shaded Dog's sound can't be duplicated today, no matter how hard you try. It just can't be duplicated. And that's because the mastering equipment chain will never be the same as they were using at this time in 1960. This has what living stereo aficionados love about living stereos. It has the most gorgeous string tone. And that's what this tube mastering affects the most, is this airy string tone. It's just luscious sounding. And you hear that all throughout this record, particularly in the second movement. There is a magical glow about the original Living Stereos, and this one has it in spades. All of these pressings are very good, but each one gets a little more modern until we get to the AP, who tries to stride the balance between all of them. If you ever see this, and you should be able to find this for under $100 in very good condition, and you like that original Living Stereo sound, grab that. I'm sure you'll love it. If you want a bargain copy that's very well pressed and sounds very good as well, this one from London Stereo Treasury, pressed in the UK, is recommended. This is from 1975. So Beautiful pressing, really nice pressing. The mastering engineer letter is W on this. I'm not sure of the name of the mastering engineer. This is a very good, slightly more modern sounding pressing. It doesn't have quite the delicacy of the original, but it's very, very good. For the price, you know, you can probably get this for $3 to $5. And it's really, really good. I love this too. More modern for sure. They were using more modern cutter heads. Even within the Stereo Treasury series, there's a break point where they change mastering equipment, and this is from the later period, and it's really, really good. The next one is Bernie Grundman's cut. Now, you can see that Classic didn't give us the luxury of the gold embossing, but they did give us a glossy cover, so that's nice. And the RCA pressings are very good. Bernie Grundman's cuts for these classic records are controversial at times over the years. They've been criticized for being too bright. I had a conversation briefly with Chad Kassem. I mentioned a couple weeks ago, we had a brief exchange, and we happened to talk about living stereo and the arrival of the classic records. And he kind of laughed that, you know, people weren't quite ready for a modern take on these living stereo titles, and criticized them for being too revealing. And it is more revealing. It is more revealing of the master tape. You get more dynamic range, you get more deep bass response, more clarity in the upper mid-range and treble, and a little bit of loss of the tube sound that was so apparent on the originals. And that's where people were like, oh, I don't know if I like this. It's a different type of sound. I don't particularly like this one. I wouldn't say this applies across all of the classic records editions, but this one just comes across a little, to me, on my equipment at least at this time, a little too harsh in the strings. It loses a little bit of the delicate feeling of the original. And music is all about feeling, and I want to feel that wonder and beauty in that second movement where those plucked strings are happening, and it's just like this array of gorgeous sound around you. It's a little too revealed on that, and I'm not quite crazy about the Classic Records edition. I actually prefer the London Stereo Treasury in that case. So that brings us to this. This is AP's edition, and this is mastered by William Mackee. The arrangement was for these Decca titles that were not, the tapes were not in America, that William Mackee would do the mastering. There are a couple of exceptions where there was a problem with Williams mastering for some reason, and they reverted back to Bernie Grundman's cuts. I think that happened on the Faust Carmen disc, and maybe Witch's Brew. I think that's the case. Maybe Royal Ballet Gala too. I think those three. So this one is actually a William Mackee cut, and it's very good. This was placed by my colleague Anthony at Audiophilia, Anthony Kershaw, into his dream list, which is kind of his super disc list, and it really deserves to be there. I don't know if he's heard the original and what he would feel about it on his beautiful equipment that he does his auditioning on, but that he gave this that recommendation is a good sign that most people will find this to be a very fine copy of this record. I find it straddles the balance between modern and vintage. It doesn't have as sharp a sound as the classic, which is good. It keeps things a little bit more under control as far as sounding, you know, getting into any harshness on strong string tone and stuff like that. The delicate parts sound beautiful. doesn't quite have the tubey glow of the original, but it's very, very good. And I think of the 3 other pressings here, I would rank it the top. I do feel, for my listening on my system, that I prefer the original pressing, then the AP, then the London Stereo Treasury, and then the classic records. Do I need 4 copies of this? No, because I can't remember a tune from it. I love the record, don't get me wrong, but it's a more modern kind of symphonic approach, and I just don't, I've listened to this like 12 times in a row, and I'd be hard pressed to hum a tune from it. But it has gorgeous sound that just, and creative orchestration that's just compelling. So you're definitely riveted to it, but it's not necessarily for a hummable tune. It's very, very good though. A classic living stereo. You should have a copy of this, and there's something for everyone here. And they're all really recommended. The $299 Stereo Treasury will get you 80% of the way there. The classic records may be a little more pricey than the AP, so I would go with the AP for that. And if you find a mint copy of the original Shaded Dog, you got to hear that one too. Anyway, you hear this. It's a nice reading of this, very well played. I love Alexander Gibson. It reminds me a lot of the things that we heard from Alexander Gibson in the Reader's Digest series, which was done around the same time, not surprisingly in the same hall. So those are my thoughts on this very special living stereo title. Let me know what you think in the comments. Until next time, I'm Scott for the Pressing Matters. Have a great day.